Hello, and welcome to Beside the Point, America's only political and news analysis program presented by robot pundits with British accents. I'm Fred.
And I'm Frida. Today we'll be telling you what to think about Barack Obama's intention to present former President George H.W. Bush, who may prove to have been the last Republican president of the US to express even a mild interest in actually governing the country, with the Medal of Freedom, the most prestigious civilian award of the United States.
That's right, Frida. Of course, we initially misread the announcement to say that the award would be presented to President Obama's immediate predecessor, George W. Bush, for his pioneering efforts in the fields of legitimating torture, generation-spanning wars and executive impunity. Instead,
we expect President Obama to commemorate the elder Mr. Bush's work in the fields of invading small countries, evading congressional restrictions on executive branch desires, and supporting the most egregious of dictators until the moment we don't. Few better examples of the latter practice can be found than Saddam Hussein.
Indeed, Frida. Hussein's war on Iran proved invaluable in diverting the Islamic Republic's post-revolutionary energies from a focus on economic and infrastructure development to a focus on survival, costing the country a generation of young men. In exchange for that service, both the Reagan and Bush executive branches killed Senate efforts to impose sanctions upon Iraq for Hussein's use of chemical weapons against the Kurds.
In October of 1989, just 6 months after quashing one of those bids for sanctions, Mr. Bush extolled the virtues of normalizing relations with Iraq on the condition that Mr. Hussein pinky promise not to use chemical weapons again.
Mr. Hussein failed, however, to promise that he would not embrace the US practice of invading small, largely defenseless nearby countries. His 1990 invasion of Kuwait followed the US invasion of Panama, home to yet another dictator supported by the United States until he wasn't, by less than a year.
The Iraqi dictator failed to understand the fundamental tenet of international law, which is that the US is free to enforce it when convenience requires, but is not bound by it.
Indeed. And the same attitude often prevails with respect to executive branch observance of domestic law. During the Reagan administration, a cabal of executive branch employees, possibly including then Vice President Bush, conspired to secretly divert funds to the drug-running war criminals known as the Contras, who sought to overthrow the legitimately elected government of Nicaragua.
Congress had forbidden material support for the Contras, so the aggrieved administration were forced to break numerous laws in order to execute their plans. Fortunately for Mr. Bush and several other participants in what came to be known as the Iran-Contra affair, incoming Democratic President Bill Clinton shut down ongoing investigations of the affair when he took office in 1993.
His decision to avoid taking a hard look at this predecessor's possibly illegal behavior presaged Mr. Obama's decision to take the same course with the younger Mr. Bush, a self-confessed war criminal, 25 years later, and was no doubt a factor in the younger Mr. Bush's decision to hire nearly every surviving Iran-Contra figure to positions in his own administration.
The Obama and Clinton decisions vindicated the 1975 assertion by former President Richard Nixon that, if the president does it, then it isn't illegal. One can understand the reluctance of sitting presidents to apply US law to former holders of the office, lest they set a precedent that could result in the application of the law to themselves.
And thank goodness for that, Frida. One can imagine no worse prospect than the chaos that would inevitably ensue should all US citizens stand equal before the law.
With that, we'll conclude today's show. If you're still wondering what to think about Mr. Obama, the elder Mr. Bush, and the Medal of Freedom, the lesson to take away is that the law and conscience end where the Oval Office begins.
Tradition is what makes this country great, Frida. Good night, and good luck.